The Carathian war chamber pulsed with bioluminescent light, its organic walls breathing in rhythm with the massive ship that housed it. Supreme Overlord Durik stood at the center of the spiral platform. His four forearms crossed over his chitinous chest as he surveyed the gathered commanders. Each one represented a different conquest fleet, veterans of 100 successful campaigns across the Outer Rim. The Carathian Empire had never known defeat in its 3,000-year expansion, and Durik intended to keep that record intact. The holographic display before them showed a small blue world, the third planet from an unremarkable yellow star. The system had been flagged by their scouts 6 cycles ago, inhabited by a young species that called themselves humans. Initial scans revealed minimal defensive capabilities, primitive faster-than-light technology, and a laughably small fleet of perhaps 200 vessels. It should have been a simple annexation, another easy addition to the Empire's growing collection of servant races. But the humans had refused the first diplomatic overture. They had actually said no to the mighty Carathian Empire. Commander Vex stepped forward, his bio-armor shifting colors to indicate aggression. His voice resonated through the chamber's acoustic membranes. Supreme Overlord, the human colony ship has arrived as requested. Their representative awaits in the reception hall. Theric's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. This would be their last chance to surrender peacefully. He had summoned them here to the heart of Carathian power to demonstrate the futility of resistance. The human representative would see their vast fleets, their advanced technology, and understand that submission was the only logical choice. The reception hall doors dilated open, and a lone human walked in. Durik had studied their physiology, but seeing one in person was different. The creature was smaller than expected, standing barely 2/3 the height of a Carathian warrior. No natural weapons were visible, no armor plating, no redundant organs that their scans could detect, just soft pink skin covered by fabric clothing. The human's name was David Chun, according to their files. Some sort of diplomatic officer from their United Earth government. Chun walked with measured steps to the designated speaking circle, showing no signs of the fear that most species displayed when first encountering the Carathians. His dark eyes swept across the assembled commanders, taking in their weapons, their size, their numbers. Then he spoke, his voice calm and surprisingly steady. Supreme Overlord Durik, I come as requested to hear your terms. Durik unfolded his primary arms, a gesture meant to intimidate. You know why you are here, human? Your species has colonized 17 systems in Sector 9. This sector now belongs to the Carathian Empire. You will evacuate all settlements within 1 solar rotation and surrender your colony ships to our fleet. Chun tilted his head slightly, a gesture Durik had learned indicated curiosity among humans. And if we refuse? The chamber erupted in harsh laughter from the assembled commanders. The sound was designed to unnerve, a cacophony of clicking mandibles and ultrasonic harmonics that had broken the resolve of countless diplomats before. But Chin simply waited for it to end, his expression unchanged. Durik leaned forward, his shadow falling over the human. Then we will take what is ours by force. Your ships will be destroyed, your colonies burned, and your species will serve the Empire in chains. We have conquered races with technology far superior to yours. We have broken civilizations that span hundreds of worlds. Your 20 billion humans spread across a handful of planets are nothing to us. I see, Chin said quietly. He reached into his jacket pocket, causing several guards to raise their weapons, but he merely pulled out a small data pad. Before I deliver Earth's response, may I share something with you? Theric's 4 eyes narrowed. Speak. Chun tapped the pad, and a hologram appeared between them. It showed a blue and green world, clearly Earth, but the image was old, taken from what looked like primitive chemical-based photography. This is our home world, taken 200 years ago. Chin began. At that time, we had just discovered nuclear fission. We had no space travel beyond chemical rockets, no energy weapons, no shields. By your standards, we were barely more than animals. Commander Vex chittered dismissively. Your point, primitive? Chin smiled, an expression that somehow seemed sad. My point, Commander, is that we went from that to interstellar travel in 2 centuries. Most species take millennia to make that journey. We did it in less than 10 generations. Luck, Derek dismissed. Or perhaps you found ancient technology. No, Chin said. We did it ourselves. And do you know why we advanced so quickly? The human tapped his pad again. The image changed to show a devastated landscape. Cities in ruins. Radiation readings that would kill most carbon-based life. Because we nearly destroyed ourselves first. We split the atom and immediately used it to wage war. We developed biological weapons that could end all life on our planet. We created artificial intelligences that we had to shackle to prevent them from eliminating us. Every great leap forward in our technology came from finding new ways to kill each other. The chamber had grown quiet. Chun continued, his voice taking on an edge that hadn't been there before. We are not a peaceful species by nature, Supreme Overlord. We are vindictive, stubborn, and capable of cruelty that would shock even your empire. We have committed genocides against our own kind. We have waged wars over ideologies, resources, even insults. Our history is written in blood, most of it our own. Then you understand warfare, the Rick said. You understand that the strong dominate the weak. Oh, we understand it better than you could imagine, Chin replied, which is why we chose to change. When we reached the stars, we made a collective decision. We would not carry our violence with us. We would become better. We would choose peace, choose cooperation, choose to see other species as potential friends rather than enemies. Chen's fingers danced across his pad, and new images appeared. Human colonies, small and undefended. Human ships built for exploration rather than war. Human citizens living alongside alien refugees they had taken in from conflicts they had no part in. For the past 50 years, we have held to that promise. We have not built warships. We have not developed new weapons. We have focused on medicine, agriculture, and art. We have tried to be the species we wish we had been from beginning. Theric's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. And that weakness will be your end. Chin looked directly at the Supreme Overlord, and for the first time, the Rick saw something in those dark human eyes that gave him pause. It wasn't fear or anger. It was pity. I need you to understand something, Chin said slowly. If you force us to fight, we will not hold back. We will not show mercy. We will not stop until the threat is completely eliminated. This is not a boast or threat. It's simply what we are. We have spent 50 years keeping that part of ourselves locked away, but it's still there, still waiting. Empty words from a species about to be enslaved, the Rick declared. What is Earth's answer? Chin straightened, his formal diplomatic bearing returning. The United Earth government formally rejects your demands. Our colonies will remain. Our ships will continue to travel freely. Any attempt to force our compliance will be met with appropriate response. The chamber erupted again, but this time with anger rather than laughter. Commanders shouted for immediate retaliation, for the human to be executed as an example. The Rick raised one arm for silence. Then you have chosen war, he said simply. No, Chin replied. You have. We are simply choosing to finish it. The human turned to leave, but paused at the door. Supreme Overlord, I am authorized to give you one final warning. Our entire species knows what happened here today. Every human on every world and every ship is now aware that the Carathian Empire has declared war on humanity. They're all asking themselves the same question. How far are we willing to go to survive? He looked back one last time. The answer, Supreme Overlord, is farther than you could possibly imagine. Farther than we want to go. But we will go there if you make us. Please, for your own sake, reconsider. Then David Chin walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of the galaxy's most feared warriors, all of whom suddenly felt a chill they couldn't quite explain. Part 2, The Reckoning. 3 weeks after the failed negotiation, the Carathian invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of human-controlled space. 500 warships, each one a masterpiece of biological engineering, arranged in perfect formation. Supreme Overlord Derek stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans had made no attempt to consolidate their defenses, no effort to gather their pathetic fleet. Their colonies continued their daily activities as if nothing had changed. Scan results. Commander Vex. Derrick inquired. No significant military presence detected. Supreme Overlord. The colony world ahead has a population of 3 million humans, defended by nothing. No orbital platforms, no shield generators, not even ground-based weapons arrays. Therick's mandibles clicked in confusion. Had the humans simply given up? Were they so paralyzed by fear that they couldn't even mount a token resistance? Send a demand for surrender, he ordered. Give them one final chance to submit. The communication went out, and within minutes a response came back. Not from the colony, but from Earth itself, faster than should have been possible given the distance. The face that appeared on the screen was not David Chun, but an older human female with gray hair and sharp eyes. This is Admiral Sarah Montgomery of the United Earth Emergency Defense Command, she said, a designation that hadn't been used in 50 years, but one they had hoped would never be necessary again. Admiral, Derrick began, your colony is defenseless. Surrender now and... Stop, Montgomery interrupted. Something no species had ever dared to do to him before. Before you proceed, you should know that 17 hours ago, every human colony began emergency evacuation protocols. The world you're looking at is empty. We moved 3 million people in less than a day. Therick's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Impossible. Our scans show life signs. Automated systems and decoys, Montgomery continued. We're quite good at deception. We had to be to survive our own history. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling to give you one last chance to withdraw. The bridge erupted in harsh laughter from the Carathian officers. Commander Vex stepped forward. You evacuated your colonies because you know you cannot defend them. This is not strength. It is cowardice. Montgomery's expression didn't change. We evacuated our colonies because what comes next shouldn't have witnesses. We learned that lesson on Earth. Some things, once seen, can never be forgotten. Enough of these empty threats, Derrick roared. Destroy the colony. Show these humans the price of defiance. As you wish, Montgomery said quietly. Activate Protocol 7. At first, nothing happened. The Carathian fleet began moving toward the abandoned colony, weapons charging. Then Derrick noticed something odd on the tactical display. The sun was wrong. The yellow star at the center of the system was flickering, pulsing in a pattern that made no natural sense. Sir, the science officer's voice carried no concern. I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system. They're artificial. The humans have done something to their sun. Before Derrick could respond, space itself seemed to ripple. The colony world below began to dissolve. Not exploding, but simply coming apart at the molecular level. The effect spread outward like a wave, consuming asteroids, moons, and empty space itself. What is this? Derrick demanded. Montgomery's face remained on screen, her expression grim. Vacuum decay weapon. We developed it 40 years ago, then immediately banned it. It creates a bubble of true vacuum that propagates at near light speed, destroying matter at the quantum level. The colony world will be gone in minutes, the entire system in hours. You're destroying your own system? Vex asked, his voice carrying something that might have been fear. One of 17 we're sacrificing, Montgomery confirmed, each one equipped with the same device. If your fleet doesn't withdraw immediately, we'll activate all of them simultaneously. The chain reaction will create a dead zone 20 light-years across. Your empire has 43 worlds in that radius. Therick's mind reeled. You would commit genocide against your own species to stop us? No, Montgomery said. We already evacuated everyone. But we will burn our own worlds to deny them to you. We will poison space itself rather than let you take it. We will make the cost of fighting us so high that even victory becomes defeat. The tactical display showed the expanding wave of destruction approaching the fleet's position. Derrick had to make a decision. All ships, emergency jump, he commanded. The Carathian fleet fled, jumping to hyperspace just as the wave of annihilation reached their previous position. They regrouped 10 light-years away, sensors confirming what seemed impossible. The entire system was gone, not conquered, not occupied, but erased from existence. A new communication came through, this time from David Chun. Behind him stood hundreds of humans, all wearing military uniforms that looked freshly removed from storage. "Supreme Overlord," Chun said, his diplomatic courtesy still intact but underlaid with steel. "That was one system. We have weapons you cannot imagine. Weapons we created and then hid away because we scared ourselves with what we were capable of. Nanophage swarms that consume organic matter and replicate exponentially. Temporal disruption devices that age targets 10,000 years in seconds. Mimetic kill agents that drive entire species insane through quantum entanglement. Species insane through quantum entanglement." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We buried these horrors because we chose to be better. We chose peace. But if you force us to unearth them, if you make us become what we once were, we will not stop at defending ourselves. We will hunt down every ship, every world, every member of your empire, not because we want to, but because that's what we do when threatened. We eliminate the threat completely and permanently." Another human stepped into view, younger, wearing the insignia of a weapon specialist. "I've been designing planet killers since I was 12, she said casually. "It's a hobby. Most humans have similar hobbies. We think about war constantly, obsessively. We plan for it, prepare for it, even when we're at peace. It's hardwired into our DNA. The only reason we haven't conquered the galaxy is because we're trying very hard not to." Thurick found his voice. "This is madness. You would destroy everything rather than surrender." "Yes," Chin said simply. "That's what you don't understand about humanity. We are, at our core, insane by galactic standards. We will die rather than submit. We will destroy ourselves to hurt our enemies. We will sacrifice everything for revenge. We spent centuries learning to control these impulses, to channel them into productive pursuits. But they're still there." The Supreme Overlord looked at his commanders, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in their poses. The Carathian Empire had conquered hundreds of species, but none like this. None that would destroy their own worlds out of spite. None that treated apocalyptic weapons as a casual hobby. "What do you want?" Thurick asked finally. "Nothing," Chin replied. "We want nothing from you except to be left alone. Return to your empire. Tell them that human space is off limits. Not because we are strong, but because we are dangerous. We are the species that split the atom and immediately built a bomb. We are the species that decoded our own genome and immediately built bioweapons. We are the species that will burn the galaxy to ashes rather than kneel." He leaned forward. "But we are also the species that chose to stop, that chose to be explorers instead of conquerors, that chose to help rather than harm. We can remain that species, the one that adds beauty and knowledge to the galaxy. Or you can force us to be the other thing. The choice is yours." Thurick stood in silence for a long moment, his four eyes studying the humans on the screen. He thought of the destroyed system, of weapons that shouldn't exist, of a species that had traumatized itself so badly that it had voluntarily abandoned warfare. "The Carathian Empire will withdraw," he said finally. "Human space will be marked as a quarantine zone. No Carathian ship will enter your territory." Chin nodded. "A wise decision. And Supreme Overlord, this doesn't have to be the end. In time, when you're ready to approach us as equals rather than conquerors, we would welcome peaceful contact. We have art to share, music, literature, medical advances. We could be the best friends you could ever hope for." His expression hardened. "Or the worst enemy you could ever imagine. The choice has always been yours." The communication ended, leaving Thurick staring at empty space where a star system used to be. Commander Vex approached cautiously. "Supreme Overlord, should we report this to the Empire?" "Yes," Thurick said quietly. "Tell them we have discovered a new classification of species. Not predator or prey, not conquered or conqueror. Tell them we have found something else." "What classification, Supreme Overlord?" Thurick's mandibles clicked in what might have been fear or respect. "Sleeping giants. And tell them, Commander, that some giants should never be awakened." As the Carathian fleet jumped back to their space, leaving the humans to their strange peace, monitoring stations across the galaxy detected something odd. The 17 systems of humans had marked for sacrifice were being rebuilt, not colonized, but literally reconstructed at the molecular level by machines that shouldn't exist, using technology that violated several laws of physics. The humans, it seemed, could create just as efficiently as they could destroy. Part 3. The Witness. 6 months after the Carathian withdrawal, Supreme Overlord Derek received an unexpected transmission. It came from a remote observation post on the edge of what was now designated the human quarantine zone. The officer in charge, a young scout named Krell, had been monitoring human activities as ordered. Supreme Overlord, Krell's voice trembled slightly. You need to see this. Derek activated the secure channel in his private quarters, away from the prying eyes of the Imperial Court. The holographic display materialized, showing Krell's anxious face. Report. Sir, I've been tracking human ship movements as commanded. 3 days ago, I detected something unusual. A human vessel entered the disputed sectors, the region where the Zarnathi Collective and the Mordax Imperium have been waging their territorial war. Therek's mandibles tightened. The Zarnathi-Mordax conflict had raged for 15 years, leaving entire systems devastated. Neither side would accept mediation, and both were too powerful for Carathian Empire to intervene without significant cost. The humans are involving themselves in external conflicts? Not exactly, sir. Krell manipulated the controls, and the image shifted to show a battered human medical vessel, marked with bold red crosses. A symbol Derek had learned meant neutrality and humanitarian aid. This ship, the USS Nightingale, entered the Korra system. That system was bombarded 6 months ago. Both sides declared it a loss and moved on. Nothing lives there now. The radiation levels alone should be fatal. Should be? Krell's expression was one of disbelief. Sir, the humans are cleaning it up. They deployed thousands of autonomous drones that are somehow scrubbing the radiation from the atmosphere, decontaminating the water, even repairing the molecular damage to the soil. And that's not all. The image zoomed in to show the planet's surface. Among the ruins of what had once been a thriving Zarnathi colony city, Derek could see thousands of figures moving. At first, he thought they were machines, but then he realized the truth. They were humans, working in the lethal environment. How are they surviving that radiation? Derek demanded. They modified themselves, sir. Genetic augmentation, cybernetic enhancements, biological shielding, all temporary. The medical staff on the Nightingale told the Zarnathi refugee ship that their people will return to baseline human genetics once the mission is complete. They see it as a necessary sacrifice. The camera panned to show a field hospital where humans in protective suits were treating Zarnathi refugees, the very species that had helped bomb the planet to ruin. Derek watched as a human doctor carefully tended to a Zarnathi child, her 3 parents watching with expressions of desperate hope. They're saving their enemies? Derek whispered. Not enemies, sir. The humans don't recognize the concept in this context. They call them patients and survivors. I intercepted a communication from the ship's commander, Captain James Morrison. He said, and I quote, "We didn't come to take sides. We came because people are suffering and we have the ability to help. That's enough." Jim rose from his seat and the room fell silent. Supreme Overlord Derek, on behalf of the United Earth Government, we accept your offer of partnership, not as subjects or masters, but as equals working toward a common goal. He paused, his expression carrying the weight of history. 3 years ago, you called us sleeping giants. Perhaps we all are. Every species capable of both terrible destruction and incredible creation. The question was never about capability. It was always about choice. Derek descended from the podium and extended his primary arm to Chun. The human clasped it firmly, and the holographic recorders captured the moment for the archives, not as a gesture of surrender or dominance, but as a handshake between partners. The galaxy has seen enough empires, Chin continued. Perhaps it's time for something new. A coalition of the willing, an alliance of the reformed, a community of those who chose to be better than their history demanded. His gaze swept across the assembled delegates. Every species here has their own darkness, their own capacity for violence. But we also all share the capacity for change. The Carathians prove that, if they can transform from conquerors to protectors, then perhaps there's hope for all of us. As the formal ceremony concluded and representatives began to mingle, Derek found himself standing beside Chun at one of the viewing ports, looking out at the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Derek asked quietly. "Destroying those 17 systems? All that potential, all those worlds, gone." Chun was silent for a moment. "Every day," he admitted. "We rebuilt them, but you can't undo something like that. We carry that choice with us, just like we carry all our choices. But regret isn't meant to paralyze us, Supreme Overlord. It's meant to remind us why we must do better next time." He glanced at the towering alien beside him. "You understand that now, don't you?" Therek's 4 eyes reflected the starlight. "Yes, we spent 3,000 years building an empire we thought would last forever. But empires don't last. They crumble and they're forgotten, and all that remains are the ruins they leave behind." His mandibles clicked softly. "But ideas can last. Partnerships can last. The choice be better, that can echo across generations. Then, perhaps," Chin said with a slight smile, "the sleeping giants have finally awakened to something worth staying awake for." Beyond the viewing port, a joint fleet prepared to depart. Carathian vessels alongside human ships, heading toward the outer rim where a famine threatened 3 colony worlds. Not conquerors or saviors, but partners offering help to those who needed it. The galaxy was changing, not through war or conquest, but through the simple, radical act of choosing compassion over cruelty, partnership over dominance, and hope over fear. And in the depths of space, other empires watched and wondered if they, too, might dare to change. The Valdran hierarchy had ruled their sector with an iron fist for 2 millennia. Their war matriarch, Zeshrala the Unbroken, watched the transmission from a Carathian archive ceremony with 3 of her compound eyes while the others scanned tactical reports. Her chief advisor, a grizzled veteran named Corthan, stood at attention beside her throne. "The Carathians have gone soft," Zeshrala hissed, her razor-sharp mandibles clicking with disdain. "This changes nothing for us. We continue as planned. The Kellen systems will be ours within the month." "Matriarch," Corthan ventured carefully, "perhaps we should consider—" "Consider what?" "Following the example of those who surrendered to a species of primitives." Zeshrala's 6 legs rattled against the metallic floor. The humans revealed their hand with their vacuum decay weapon. They're bluffing with fear because they lack the strength for true conquest. The Carathians simply lost their nerve. Corthan activated a datapad, projecting new intelligence before the matriarch. "Permission to share updated reconnaissance, matriarch?" Zeshrala gestured impatiently. "The human relief ship that entered the Kara system. We sent our own observers, as did 6 other major powers. What we discovered is troubling." Corthan's antennae drooped with something that might have been apprehension. The technology they used to decontaminate a dead world in 6 months should be impossible. Their medical capabilities allowed them to treat over 40 different species, adapting their procedures in real time to accommodate wildly different biologies. And the memory wall. "A monument means nothing in war," Zeshrala interrupted. "It wasn't just a monument, matriarch. Our cultural analysts examined it. The precision of each name, the care taken with pronunciation guides in 17 different languages, the historical context provided for each individual life lost. It demonstrated a level of dedication to remembering that borders on obsession." Corthan's voice grew quieter. "They remember everything, matriarch. Every war, every mistake, every atrocity their species committed. They carry it with them like genetic memory. And they claim they do this specifically to ensure they never repeat those mistakes." Zeshrala shifted on her throne, her armor plates adjusting. "Your point, my point, matriarch, is that we may be facing a species that has weaponized their own trauma. They didn't forget their capacity for violence. They archived it, studied it, and deliberately chose a different path. That's not weakness. That's discipline on a civilizational scale." Corthan pulled up another image. This one showing human children in a classroom, learning about something called the World Wars. They teach their young about their darkest moments, not to glorify them, but to horrify them. to make certain each generation understands what happens when they lose control. Indoctrination of weakness, Zashrala scoffed, but her voice carried less certainty. Is it? Corthan challenged, his tone bordering on insubordination. The Carathians were the apex predators of this region for 3,000 years. They surrendered not because the humans defeated them, but because the humans made them question the entire purpose of conquest. That's not a military victory, matriarch. That's something far more dangerous. It's a philosophical one. Before Zashrala could respond, an urgent communication interrupted them. The face of a Valdrin scout appeared, her expression carrying barely concealed panic. Matriarch, the Kellan resistance has made contact with the humans. A hospital ship arrived in their space 3 hours ago, offering medical aid and asking nothing in return. The Kellan leadership is requesting negotiation instead of fighting. They want to talk about peaceful incorporation rather than military annexation. Zashrala's legs clattered in agitation. Ready the fleet. We move now, before this infection spreads further. Matriarch, the scout continued, her voice trembling. There's more. The human ship transmitted a message to our border stations. It's addressed to you personally. The screen shifted, and Admiral Sarah Montgomery appeared, the same human who had destroyed an entire star system rather than let it fall to the Carathians. But her expression now was different. Not threatening, but resolute. War Matriarch Zashrala, I hope this message finds you well. I understand your fleets are preparing to move against the Kellan systems. I'm not here to threaten you or to stand in your way. Montgomery paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm here to offer you the same choice we offer the Carathians. You can take the Kellan worlds by force, and humanity will not intervene militarily. That's not our way anymore. Zashrala's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. See? They admit their weakness. But Montgomery wasn't finished. However, I want you to know what will happen next. After you conquer the Kellan worlds, humanity will offer reconstruction aid to the survivors. We'll treat the wounded from both sides. We'll document what happened. Every name, every life, every act of violence. We'll preserve that record for history. Her expression hardened. And then we'll share it with the galaxy. Every species will see exactly what the Valdrin hierarchy did and why. They'll see the Kellan resistance fighters who died defending their homes. They'll see the civilian casualties, the destroyed cities, the orphaned children. Empty moralism, Zashrala hissed. No, Montgomery continued. Witness testimony. You see, Matriarch, humanity learned something crucial from our own bloody history. Conquerors rarely lose because they're defeated militarily. They lose because eventually everyone else unites against them. Because the conquered remember and they wait, and they pass down their hatred through generations until it becomes inevitable revolution. She leaned forward. The Carathians understood this when they saw our memory walls. They realize that we don't forget, and we don't let others forget either. Every atrocity, every conquest, every act of imperialism is documented, preserved, and shared. You can conquer the Kellan today, Matriarch, but 50 years from now, 100 years from now, the galaxy will still remember, and they'll judge you for it. Corthan spoke softly beside his Matriarch. The humans have weaponized shame. Montgomery's image nodded, as if she could hear him. Not shame, accountability. We're offering the Kellan medical aid and a platform to tell their story. We're offering you a chance to negotiate instead of conquer, to be remembered as a civilization that chose strength tempered with mercy. She paused. The Carathians discovered they could be more than their history. So can you. The choice is yours, but understand, whatever you choose, humanity will ensure the galaxy remembers it. All of it. Forever. The transmission ended, leaving Zashrala staring at empty space. Around her throne room, her advisors shifted uneasily. Finally, Corthan spoke. Matriarch, the humans have created a new kind of deterrent. Not mutual destruction, but mutual witness. They're saying that even if we win militarily, we lose morally, and that the moral loss will eventually lead to our downfall. He gestured to the data. The Carathians reformed because they realized their empire will become unsustainable. Every conquered species was a future enemy, a future rebellion. The humans showed them a different path. Zashrala sat in silence for a long time, her multiple eyes processing the implications. Finally, she rose from her throne, her massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "Open a channel to the Kellan leadership," she commanded, "and send a message to the human hospital ship. Tell them the Valdrin hierarchy requests their presence at the negotiating table, not as conquerors or as judges, but as witnesses to what happens next." Corthan's antennae lifted in surprise. "Matriarch, the humans are right about one thing," Zashrala said quietly. "History remembers, and I would rather be remembered for wisdom than for cruelty that future generations will condemn." She turned to face her advisor. "Perhaps it's time the Valdrin hierarchy learned that true strength includes knowing when not to strike." As word of the Valdrin hierarchy's decision spread to the galaxy, a subtle shift began to take hold. Not revolution, not dramatic transformation, but something quieter and more profound, the slow, steady realization that perhaps the old ways of empire and conquest were giving way to something new. And at the center of it all, humanity continued their quiet work, healing the wounded, remembering the dead, and witnessing the galaxy's transformation from conquerors to partners. The sleeping giants hadn't just awakened. They had become the conscience of the stars. Aboard the USS Nightingale, now stationed near the Valdrin Kellan negotiation site, Captain James Morrison sat at his quarters composing a message to Earth. The blue-green world appeared on his screen, more beautiful than any other planet he'd encountered in his travels. He began to record. "To the United Earth Assembly, this is Captain Morrison reporting from the Kellan sector. I wish you could see what I'm seeing right now. Through my viewport, I can watch Valdrin and Kellan delegates boarding our ship for the third round of peace talks. Yesterday, they were preparing for war. Today, they're arguing about trade routes and culture exchange programs." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "Admiral Montgomery asked me to observe something during these negotiations. She said, watch their faces when they see the memory wall projections. Watch what happens when they truly understand what humanity survived to get here." So I watched, and I saw something I'll never forget. Morrison pulled up a video file, showing the moment when human historians presented the delegates with images from Earth's own wars, the trenches, the atomic shadows, the killing fields, the Holocaust, Rwanda, the climate conflicts. The Valdrin War matriarch actually wept. I didn't know her species could weep. She looked at me afterward and asked, "How did you survive yourselves?" I told her the truth. We almost didn't. We came so close to extinction that we could feel the abyss staring back at us. He leaned forward, his voice growing softer. "But here's what I want you to understand, what I need the people of Earth to know. We did something unprecedented out here. We didn't win through superior firepower. We didn't negotiate from a position of strength. We won by showing the galaxy our scars and saying, we survived this, and we chose to be better. So can you." Morrison glanced at a photo on his desk, his daughter, 8 years old, smiling in front of the San Francisco memory wall. The Carathians have begun construction on their own memory walls. They're documenting the 3,000 years of species they conquered, enslaved, or destroyed. Supreme Overlord Durek told me it's the most painful thing his civilization has ever undertaken, but he also said it's necessary. He said, "We cannot become better if we refuse to acknowledge what we were." The captain's expression grew contemplative. "Sometimes I think about David Chun standing in that war chamber 3 years ago, staring down 500 warships with nothing but the truth about who we are. He showed them our capacity for destruction, yes, but more importantly, he showed them our capacity for choice. And that choice, that decision to be more than our worst impulses, is spreading like wildfire through the galaxy." Morrison stood, moving to the viewport when negotiations continued in the adjacent docking bay. "We came to the stars carrying our trauma, our regrets, and our determination never to repeat our mistakes. We thought we were just trying to survive, to be left alone, but somehow we became something else. We became proof that change is possible, that civilizations can evolve, that the violence encoded in survival instincts doesn't have to define us forever." He turned back to the camera. "The galaxy is watching us now, not with fear, but with hope. Hope that if humanity could transform from world killers to world healers, maybe they can too. That's a heavy responsibility, but it's also the greatest honor I can imagine. Morrison prepared to end the transmission, then added one final thought. My daughter asked me before I left why we keep building memory walls, if they make us sad. I told her, because sadness reminds us we're human. And being human means remembering, learning, and choosing to be kind even when it's hard. She said, that sounds exhausting. I said, it is, but it's also the only way forward. He smiled slightly. Tell her I'll be home soon. And tell her that the galaxy is a little bit better today than it was yesterday. Not because humanity is powerful, but because we remember what it cost us to become who we are, and we made sure no one else will forget either. The transmission ended, carrying its message across the light years back to Earth, where billions of humans continued their daily lives, unaware that their species had quietly become the galaxy's moral compass. Not through conquest or superiority, but through the simple revolutionary act of choosing to remember their failures and grow beyond them. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the vacuum decay device or the temporal disruptors or any of the horrors they'd locked away. It was their willingness to look at their own darkness and say, never again. We will be better. We must be better. And in doing so, they'd shown the galaxy that redemption wasn't just possible. It was a choice available to anyone brave enough to make it. In the year 2157, 50 years after first contact with the Carathians, the Galactic Memory Archive opened its doors on a neutral space station at the heart of explored space. The structure itself was a collaborative effort. Human engineering, Carathian biological architecture, Valden artistic design, and Kellen quantum data storage. It housed the largest collection of historical records ever assembled. The complete, unfiltered histories of 43 species. At the dedication ceremony, an elderly David Chin stood beside Supreme Overlord Theric's successor, a young Carathian named Myrax who had been born after the war that never happened. Together, they unveiled the archive's central monument, a spiral of crystalline memory cores, each one containing billions of names, stories, and records of both atrocities and triumphs. My predecessor taught me something, Myrax said, her voice carrying through the assembled crowd of thousands. He said that Supreme Overlord Durick once believed the Carathian Empire would last forever, but he learned from humanity that empires are temporary. Ideas are eternal. Chin nodded slowly, his hair now completely white, his hands trembling slightly with age. We built this archive not to judge the past, but to learn from it. Every species here has contributed their darkest moments and their greatest achievements. The genocides alongside the peace treaties. The weapons of mass destruction alongside the medical miracles. All of it preserved, all of it remembered. A young human journalist, no older than 20, raised her hand. Ambassador Chun, some critics say that dwelling on past atrocities prevents us from moving forward. How would you respond? Chin smiled, the same sad smile he'd worn in the Carathian war chamber half a century ago. I'd say they've misunderstood the purpose of memory. We don't remember the past to live in it. We remember it to ensure we don't repeat it. Every species in this archive made choices, some terrible, some beautiful. By preserving both, we give future generations a choice. Learn from our mistakes or repeat them. Myrax gestured the crowd, where species that had once been enemies now stood side by side. 50 years ago, my people were conquerors. Today, we are partners. That transformation didn't happen because we forgot what we were. It happened because we remembered, acknowledged it, and chose to become something better. The humans gave us that gift not through force, but through example. As the ceremony concluded and the archives officially opened to the public, something remarkable happened. Visitors from across the galaxy began leaving their own additions. Personal stories, family histories, testimonies of survival and hope. The archive became not just a record of official history, but a living testament to the lived experiences of billions. Chin stood at the entrance long after the crowds had dispersed, watching a Carathian child and a human child exploring the exhibits together, pointing excitedly at displays showing the peaceful collaboration between their peoples. The Carathian child asked her human friend, "Did our species really almost fight a war?" The human child nodded seriously. My grandfather says it was really close, but they chose to talk instead. He says that's what grown-ups are supposed to do. Choose to talk even when they're scared. Chun felt tears sliding down his weathered cheeks. Beside him, Myrax placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. You did this, Ambassador. You and Admiral Montgomery and Captain Morrison and thousands of others. You showed us that the measure of a civilization isn't its capacity for destruction, but its courage to choose differently. No, Chin said softly, watching the children laugh together. We all did this. Every species that had the courage to confront their past, to admit their failures, to choose growth over pride. Humanity just went first. Someone had to. The old diplomat turned away from the archives, ready to return to Earth for his final years. But he carried with him the knowledge that humanity's greatest legacy wasn't the weapons they'd buried, or the systems they destroyed, or even the lives they'd saved. It was a simple revolutionary idea that any species, no matter how violent their past, could choose to be better. And that choice, echoing through the archives and across the stars, would outlive them all. The true end